I'm Sari.
And I'm Haley.
And this is Seamwork Radio. Welcome back to Seamwork Radio, where we share practical ideas for building a creative process so you can sew with intention and joy. So today we're talking about a topic that I think pretty much all sewists struggle with at some point, which is how to shop for fabric with intention. So we're going to cover how to understand your personal style when shopping for fabric, practical strategies for creating a more cohesive stash, and how to make choices you'll feel good about long after you leave the fabric store. All right, Haley, our icebreaker question for today is, what's the longest you've had a piece of fabric in your stash before finally using it?
So when I first started sewing, one of my very first fabric purchases was this quilting cotton that was the designer's Heather Ross, and she had all these she still makes fabric, I believe, all these whimsical kind of fairy tale fabrics, and there was this mermaid one, and it's little kid mermaids, and it's very cute in minimalist style. And I saw it, I fell in love with it, and the colors, it's peach and tangerine and white and brown. And I was like, I'm going to buy this, and I'm going to have a daughter someday, and I'm going to make a blanket for her. Mind you, I was 17. But
Thinking
then
ahead.
I did have a daughter. And in 2020, I made Charlie a blanket out of it. And she sleeps with it on the end of her bed every night, and it's so cute. And when I see it, it just makes me think of my really young, hopeful self. And then I got what I wanted.
That's so sweet.
I manifested it.
I love that. That's so special that you were able to turn it into that thing that you dreamed of when you were only 17. That's so cool. Oh, I bet Charlie loves it too.
Yeah, she loves it.
Who wouldn't love a blanket with mermaids on it?
She loves bragging about anything that I make for her, which I love that.
Yeah.
She's like, my mommy made it. My mommy made it for me.
Oh, that's sweet. Maybe that's one of her love languages.
Yeah, probably.
Mommy making things for me. That's really sweet. I don't know what the longest I've had a piece of fabric in my stash is before, but just yesterday, I was planning out my summer sewing at the moment when we're recording this. And I was going through my stash, and I was in the garage, and I noticed a bin of fabric that I hadn't thought about. And so I pulled it down, and I had all this 1940s beautiful rayon that I've collected over years. I've had it for just a really long time. And there's some really beautiful things in there. And it just made me think I should really start using some of this stuff. So I pulled it all out, and I brought it into the sewing shed, and I was kind of laying it out with different fabrics and really seeing what would work with the other fabrics that I had chosen for my projects. And it was really fun exercise to kind of dig out all this stuff that I'd had for a while and think about, if not now, what could I use it for in the future? Because I do tend to forget about stuff that I've had for a long time. So I think it was really cool. It was just really neat to see all that stuff again.
It's also interesting to see the contrast or maybe the similarities between the things that you were drawn to a long time ago versus what your tastes are now. Sometimes they're more aligned than you think that they're going to be.
Yeah, there's this one fabric in there. It's so pretty. I also have some fabrics that are so pretty that I don't want to use them, which is why they've been in my stash for so long. But this one it's a black rayon from the 1940s, and it has bright pink rosebuds all over it, and then it has these curly Q lines in between, these little twirls. Cute. It's just so cute. I really want to find a use for it. So I was thinking maybe of making the lilac dress in that. I'm not sure yet, though. I'll figure that one out. So anyway, that's our icebreaker for today. And if you have a question for us for a future icebreaker, you can leave it in a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and we'll bring it to a future episode. All right, let's talk about the topic for today. So if you're anything like me, you've experienced that moment when you come home from a fabric store with bags full of these gorgeous textiles and absolutely no plan for what to do with them. And maybe you've spent more money than you intended to spend at the fabric store. Or maybe you've ordered yards of this really stunning printed linen online, only to have it sit in your stash for years because you just can't figure out what it wants to be. So I'm not going to lie, I've been sewing for decades and I definitely still struggle with this sometimes. That feeling of just possibility when you're surrounded by beautiful fabrics can be really, really intoxicating. But over the years, I've developed some strategies that help me build a fabric collection that I'll actually use. And today I want to share them with you. So the goal isn't to stop buying fabric altogether because, let's be realistic here, but it's rather to shop with more intention. So the fabrics you bring home align with your actual sewing plans and your personal style. And when you do this, you'll find that your stash becomes less overwhelming and more inspiring. It's going to be a curated collection rather than this chaotic pile of someday projects that never really materialize. So, Haley, what was your most recent fabric purchase that you're really excited about?
My most recent fabric purchase, I did purchase just last week some really cute little ditzy floral prints that I'm going to make dresses for my daughters out of. We're going to do some family photos, and I thought, it'd be so cute to make little heirloom dresses for them that we can save, and then they'll have a photo of themselves in them. So I'm really excited about that right now. But most recent purchase for me, I haven't bought fabric for myself in a minute. I bought some really cute corduroy a few months ago with no particular project in mind, but it's a color I love, a texture I love, so I'll get around to it. What about you? What's your most recent exciting fabric purchase?
I've been trying to spend less on fabric and shop my stash a whole lot more. I'm doing a really great job of that. We'll talk about some of the ways that I'm doing that and some tips in the episode today. But the most recent thing I purchased was a Liberty fabric that I've been wanting for a long time. I saw it maybe months ago, I think probably via Pinterest or something like that. And I don't remember what the name of the pattern is, but it's like a red and white. It has almost like an Indian block print look to it, but very intricate. The colors are really beautiful, very vibrant. It's just really, really pretty. And I saw it. I ordered it from B&J. It was quite expensive, as Liberty fabrics tend to be. I had it as part of my wardrobe plan for the summer, so I knew exactly what I wanted to make out of it. I'm going to make a fern blouse out of it.
Oh, cool.
And I'm going to add some flat piping to the edges, to the placket. And it's just going to be really, really pretty. So I'm very excited about it. And I feel like Liberty fabrics never disappoint me. They always look beautiful.
And something that I also purchase a lot less fabric these days, and something that's really nice about that is that when I do purchase fabric, I feel like a little bit more entitled to treat myself to something a little special like a Liberty fabric.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that way about shopping in general. I'm just trying to be a lot pickier in my life in general, both with things I buy, but also how I spend my time. And I think that allows you to do things, acquire things, invite things into your life that feel a little bit more meaningful to you, even if they cost a little bit more.
I totally agree. Well, speaking of this, how do you think your fabric buying habits have changed over time as you've evolved?
Well, I used to buy a lot of fabric because I would just go to the fabric store and fall in love with all of these fabrics. And then, of course, you're thinking, well, if I come back in a month, it's not going to be here. So I better just buy it and then I'll figure out what to do with it later. Or even if you have a project in mind for it, you might have a project in mind for that fabric, but also for that fabric and also for that fabric. And you don't actually have time to make them all.
Yeah.
So I used to spend a lot more money than I needed to on fabric. And as a result, I have not a huge fabric stash, but a pretty substantial one. But nowadays, I really try to look at what I already have first and make that a priority. And I think doing a lot more planning around what I'm going to sew really, really helps with that. What about you?
I think similar story. I used to treat fabric shopping almost like a hobby of its own. It just led me to buying more than I could possibly use. And I think that a couple things happened. I became overwhelmed by the volume of fabric. I'm tend towards minimalism, so it was kind of out of my character to be acquiring so much. And it really like got me to slow down and like consider why I was willing to sacrifice. Like sacrificing my values sounds kind of dramatic, but like in a way
Yeah.
in this one area of my life.
Mhm.
And then also I just became like more confident in my tastes and what I like and what
Mhm.
I'm going to use and more realistic.
Yeah.
And so that kind of like pumped the brakes on my fabric buying. Now I probably only buy fabric special for like a quarter of my projects.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say I'm about the same, maybe a quarter, maybe even less. Like, I really try to use what I already have because I have a lot of great stuff. But I think I don't know if this is true for you. I feel like it might be true for a lot of us. For some reason, I don't like to spend a lot of money. I'm pretty frugal. I don't really like do a ton of shopping, and I really hem and haw before I buy something for myself. But for some reason with fabric, I always felt like a license to buy. Like I never really thought about the money as much or how much I was spending. And this is even before sewing became part of my career so that I could justify it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know why that is. I feel like I've heard other sewists say the same thing, and I think um maybe it's because it's part of your hobby or something that you enjoy so much, or maybe it's because it's something that's creative. I guess I kind of feel that way about art supplies in the same way, but I've noticed that in myself, and I've always wondered about that a little bit.
I literally used to say like, well, it's like my clothing budget and my hobby budget
Yeah.
all in one. So I like justified in spending more,
Hmm.
which is like kind of true.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't like for me, I think I just came to the conclusion that it didn't justify like irresponsible spending.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not just the money, it's also the stuff.
Yeah, the consumption aspect of it too, for sure. What do you think is the biggest challenge when it comes to fabric shopping? Is it the excitement of possibility or the like fear of missing out, or is it something else like entirely?
I think the fear of missing out is a big part of it because even though the excitement might kind of be the initial thing that starts you wanting to buy, I think a lot of things, if they were available all the time year round, then there wouldn't be a reason. There wouldn't be that sense of urgency to buy it when you go to the fabric store and see it. Like, for example, the Liberty fabric that I just bought, it's Liberty. I knew that it would probably be available for a little while at least, that, I'd be able to search for it and find it again. There's probably multiple stores carrying it. Although this seems to be a more rare one that I haven't really found at a lot of stores. So maybe it's not a great example. But, with a fabric like that, I could kind of save up for it and make sure that it was the one I wanted before buying. But if it's something that I know is just, something that the fabric store has a certain amount of and then it'll be gone, then that might induce me to buy. Don't you feel like
Yeah,
that's
I get FOMO, especially with dead stock fabrics, and I like to shop a lot of places that have dead stock. FOMO definitely gets me once in a while.
Yeah. That's still the thing that I think will trap me every once in a while.
Yeah, totally. But I think I have a little bit better strategies in place now. So even if it is like a FOMO purchase, 99% of the time it's aligned with,
Yeah.
my style and my needs. Well, let's get into some of these tips. I'm going to kick us off with number 1, understanding your own personal style. Before you even think about buying fabric, it really helps to clearly define your style and what you're drawn to. And this might sound like totally obvious, but I find that many sewists get really distracted by a beautiful fabric that doesn't really align with what they actually love to wear. It's important to look beyond what's trendy. A true personal style comes from your own unique experiences and what you love, not just what's trending on Instagram this season. I'm all for finding inspiration online. Trust me, I do it all the time. But if you buy fabric just because it's popular at the moment, you often don't end up using it. Instead, think of yourself as an artist with a unique point of view. What colors make you feel most like yourself? What silhouettes do you really reach for time and time again? For me, I realize that I really love softer kind of mid-tones. I like dusty blue, blush, shades of olive, varying shades of denim, and occasionally a little pop of color for something more vibrant. And I'm also really drawn to texture. Understanding this about myself, it helps me to resist like a gorgeous neon floral print that I might admire, but I know like I'm not actually gonna wear. Sari, what kinds of fabrics do you feel consistently drawn to?
For me, like I really have realized that I love, in terms of texture, I really like slinky fabrics like a rayon challis. I think that's a really good versatile fabric that works in the kinds of styles that I like,
Mm-hmm.
and comes in a lot of great prints. As far as prints go, I really like florals, especially kind of old-fashioned florals or really dark florals, like florals with a dark ground. I'm really drawn to something with a black background and beautiful flowers on it will get me every time. I like ditzy prints. And as far as colors, I have a pretty consistent color palette. I love black and cream and chocolate brown, and I like red and pink and kind of warmer colors. I tend to be drawn to more warm colors and then a few kind of shades of blue and green mixed in. So I definitely feel like over time I've really come to recognize what I like best and what I feel my best in and what just feels like me and feels special to me.
Yeah, you have a really defined style. I feel like at least a few times a year I'm sending you links of like a Sari fabric.
Yeah, fabrics that I'll like. Yeah. The next tip is to create a seasonal fabric palette. So this is one strategy that has really transformed my fabric shopping habits, which is creating that seasonal color palette. And it's also helped me to realize what we were just talking about, the things that I really am drawn to season after season, because I can see the patterns over time. So we cover this in depth in our Design Your Wardrobe program, but I'm going to give you the basic idea behind it. So for each season, you build a palette which consists of 2 to 3 neutral colors, 2 to 3 basic colors, and 1 or 2 statement colors. And those numbers can vary. That's just kind of a rough guideline for you. So these can shift from season to season, but having a defined palette helps you to make more cohesive choices. So for example, my winter palettes tend more towards black, navy, chocolate brown, deep red. And then in summer, I use lots of ivory, cream, blush pink. I might incorporate more of like a bright cherry red into there because I love red. So it does vary throughout the year, but it gives me kind of a framework for the entire year. I can kind of see where my tastes lead me in different seasons, and it's really great to see over time how those kinds of patterns emerge. When I go fabric shopping with my palette in mind, I'm much less tempted by, like a gorgeous teal linen that doesn't go with anything else I'm planning to make. It just looks so pretty on the bolt. I can say no to that because I know that it doesn't really fit the things that I actually want to wear and the things that I actually want to make. And then the pieces I create tend to mix and match better, which creates a more versatile wardrobe for me. So it's kind of like creating a capsule wardrobe, but for your fabric stash. So do you use seasonal palettes when you shop for fabric, Haley?
Yes. I think like you, I have like a pretty defined palette that trends one way in the warmer months and then a little bit different, like a moodier way in the winter. But I have like my colors,
Yeah.
my like 8 colors that I just wear over and over again. And I think I used to feel like I needed to like reinvent it every season.
Mm-hmm.
And now I don't.
Yeah.
I will audition some new colors once in a while, but I have like a pretty defined color palette and I like it that way.
Yeah. I like it too. It just makes it so much easier.
Yeah, easier to plan, easier to get dressed in the morning, just more mix and match options. I like it.
And easier to feel like yourself when you get dressed and not like you're putting on something that feels kind of random or that you bought because it was looked great in the store or on a model or something like that. It's just a nice way to be true to yourself.
Yeah. Well, along those lines, our third tip is to discover your signature prints. So in addition to color palette, I found it really helpful to identify the types of prints I'm consistently drawn to and that I actually wear regularly. So ask yourself, are these styles of prints that you're really drawn to? Are they patterns that you find yourself wearing more than others? For example, I love yarn dyed fabrics like gingham and stripes, and they've really become like my signature prints. They feel like me. They don't feel too precious or fussy. And most importantly, I know that I'm actually going to wear them. You don't have to stick exclusively to your signature prints. For example, I definitely mix in a floral from time to time, but identifying them really helps you to narrow your choices when faced with endless options when you're shopping online or in a fabric store. It's also a really great way to develop a recognizable kind of personal style in your handmade wardrobe. Some sewists I know even keep a small little swatch book of their favorite prints to bring fabric shopping, which helps them to avoid kind of impulse purchases. Think of your signature print like your favorite recipe. They're reliable. You know that you're going to enjoy them, and they just feel like, you. Sari, tell me about your signature prints.
Well, I mentioned some of them earlier, but I definitely feel like florals are a big part of it. I love florals. Like you, I like checks and stripes as well. I like to mix those in. The classic prints. I really like a classic gingham, a classic stripe, in addition to those kind of vintagey florals. I would say those are kind of my main signature prints, the things I go to a lot.
Yeah.
The next tip is to shop your stash first. So this one might seem obvious, but before buying new fabric, you can shop your stash first. And I can't tell you how many times I've bought something new only to come home and discover I already had the perfect fabric for my project. So when you're planning your sewing, take time to pull out what you already have and consider if anything you have already works for your project. So something that is in your stash might be actually the perfect fit and you don't need to go out and buy something new. Often I just forget what I already have and then I just rush to buy something. And planning my sewing out really helps to combat this. So here's a tip that's worked really well for me. At the beginning of each season, pull out all the fabrics from your stash that match your seasonal palette and put them in a special box or shelf. I have this in my own sewing shed. Actually, we have a video. I talked about, I think it's 5 different ways to organize your fabric stash, and this was one of them, and it's something that I've continued to do and has been really, really helpful. And it just makes it so much easier to shop your stash first when you're planning a new sewing project, when you've kind of separated these all out to begin with. I also think it's super important to declutter regularly and just give away or donate what you'll never use. So I try to do this at least twice a year. And if you're struggling to let go of fabric, ask yourself, if I saw this in a store today, would I buy it? And if the answer is no, it might be time to pass it on. So, Haley, do you have any strategies yourself for making your stash more shoppable?
Yeah, I think that organization, the way you organize your stash is really key. What I do is I have 2 sets of drawers, and they're just like kind of cheap, like plastic drawers. In one, I have my knits, and then another, I have my wovens, and then they're separated by weight. Oftentimes, you know the weight. Obviously, you know if you want a knit or a woven when you're looking for a fabric for a project. So the work of narrowing it down is already half done for me. I just have the options that are in that one drawer. And it also makes it a lot easier, like you said, to at a glance see what I have before I go and buy something.
Yeah.
Next tip is to create criteria for shopping. So if you have trouble with FOMO, like I sometimes do, when fabric shopping, and honestly, like who doesn't, make a list of rules for yourself before you head to the store or open up a browser tab. For example, I've adopted a rule that I'll only buy fabric if I have a specific project in mind for it. This has really drastically helped me reduce any impulse purchases and helped me to build a more usable stash. Even if I don't make that project immediately, I have something in mind for it for the future. Or if you're someone who just prefers to let fabric kind of guide what they sew, you can do a different kind of constraint. So you could put a limit on a certain number of purchases that you're going to make each season, or maybe it's a specific budget. You could also implement a one in, one out policy. So you have to use a piece of fabric from your stash before you purchase anything new. Setting boundaries for yourself can really help you from going overboard while still allowing for a little bit of creativity and joy in your fabric shopping. So here's a few questions that you might ask yourself before buying fabric. Does this fit into my seasonal palette? Do I have a specific pattern in mind for it? Is this a fabric type/weight I know how to work with and I actually enjoy sewing? That's a really key question to ask yourself. I have lots of fabrics in my stash that I'm like, I just don't want to bother. Do I already own something similar that I haven't used yet? Can I realistically see myself wearing this day to day in my life? If the answer to most of these is yes, then you could probably feel pretty confident making the purchase. Sari, do you have any personal rules or criteria that you follow when you're fabric shopping?
Well, I also try to make sure that I have a specific project in mind for anything that I'm purchasing. I find that if I don't do that, if I don't have a project in mind for it, I just buying it because it's cute, that's when it tends to just sit in my stash for a really long time. Sometimes you can justify it by coming up with a project idea on the fly, but it's just one more little criteria I can put in place. I would say that that is probably my main one right now. I have done the one in, one out policy in the past when I feel like my fabric stash is getting a little bit out of control. I do the same thing with my wardrobe, and that's really, really helpful, but I don't do it all the time. That's just more of when needed sort of thing. The next tip is to create a project queue. So one strategy that's really helped me buy fabric with intention is maintaining a project queue. So before I go fabric shopping, I make a list of 3 to 5 projects I want to sew in the coming months, including which patterns I'll use and what type of fabric each one requires. So I use the design your wardrobe process for this and really kind of mood board and map out every single project that I'm going to make within a certain period of time. Usually it's a 3-month season. And usually I end up with between 3 and 5 projects. So that's what I'm kind of shopping for all at one time. And this gives my shopping trip a purpose and helps me to resist random purchases. And again, first I shop my stash before even going to the store or going to an online fabric store. And I just find I'm more satisfied with what I bring home because each piece has a clear purpose in my sewing plans. So it's kind of like going grocery shopping with a meal plan and a list. You're just much less likely to end up with a cart full of random items. I know that when I go to the grocery store without a list, I end up with a lot of Oreos in my cart and not a lot of fruit. So this is a great way to kind of give yourself a little bit of structure before you shop and you're faced with all those temptations. And when you do find that perfect fabric for one of your planned projects, the excitement is even greater because you know exactly what it's going to become. So that said, I do leave a little room for serendipity. Sometimes you find a fabric that's so perfect and inspires a whole new project. And, that's totally okay from time to time. I think the goal isn't really to take all the joy out of fabric shopping. It's to help you build a collection that truly inspires you. So, Haley, how do you balance planning with those magical, had-to-have-it fabric moments?
I think actually having a planning process, I think, is what helps the most with this. So each season, I do some version of Design Your Wardrobe, even if I don't follow it exactly day for day. I follow kind of a rough outline of it so that I can come up with a realistic list of what I'm going to be sewing that season. And I would say that I stick to that 90% of the time. And because those are projects that I took the time to plan out and get really excited about, I'm not sidetracked by things as much anymore unless they're particularly exciting to me.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I just think that planning things out, not only is it really fun to do all those mood boards and to plan everything and really design things, it does really help with all of the stuff we've talked about today. So Before we recap today's episode, I wanted to mention that Haley and I are going to be taking a little podcasting break for the next 3 weeks just to enjoy our summer and also to plan some new ideas for the show. So we'll return on August 25th to share our reflections on our summer sewing. So that's going to be our next episode on August 25th is all about the things that we sewed this summer and what we think about them. So we've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about understanding your personal style before you shop, creating seasonal palettes, identifying your signature prints, shopping your stash first, setting criteria for new purchases, and maintaining a project queue. So what's your big takeaway from today's episode, Haley?
I think my big takeaway is like maybe more of like a personal one and just recognizing how far I've come in my like purchasing habits with fabric and how much of that has to do with the strategies I've implemented around my sewing and my planning. I think that if you would have asked me like 10 years ago if something like that would appeal to me, I would have thought that it took out some of like the creativity, but it didn't take away any of the creativity. I think if anything, it added it. I think I was maybe convoluting spontaneity and creativity, which I think is easy to do. But yeah, I don't feel any less creative because I buy less.
Yeah, definitely. I think mine is kind of similar. I feel like for me, the idea of really sitting down and planning things out and spending time on that part of the process has been really transformational, both in changing up my spending habits, which, I think it's a nice side benefit. I don't think it's the main benefit for me.
Yeah.
I think the main benefit is I've gotten to know my personal style a lot better. Sewing has become kind of a vehicle for self-expression in a totally different way. It's less about having new things, and it's more about discovery and exploration. And I think that's really cool. I think it's a very interesting process and a kind of a process of self-discovery. If you're really interested in this kind of thing and you want to plan your sewing projects with more intention, that's exactly what our Design Your Wardrobe program is all about. And it's perfect timing because registration is open right now for our next session. So in Design Your Wardrobe, we walk you through the entire process of planning a cohesive collection of garments that you'll actually wear and love. So you'll learn how to define your style, create a color palette, plan specific projects, and build a personalized sewing queue. So one of my favorite parts of the program is that you'll be doing it alongside other creative sewists in our community, just sharing ideas and getting feedback along the way. And if you want to transform how you approach your sewing projects and create a more intentional handmade wardrobe, I'd love for you to join us. You can just go to seamwork.com/go/DYW to learn more and sign up. And registration is only open for a limited time for this next session. So be sure to check it out soon and sign up if you're interested. We run these programs periodically. We run them every season. They're timed with the seasons, and you can join this session right now. And if you liked this episode, you can leave us a review. We would love to hear from you. We read every single review we get. So if you want to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we would absolutely love it. And it helps other people to discover the show too. You can also follow us on YouTube at Seamwork Video. You can follow us on Instagram at Seamwork. And if you'd like to become part of the Seamwork community, head over to seamwork.com to learn how to join. And that is it for us this week, and we'll see you in a few weeks. I'm Sari.
And I'm Haley.
And this is Seamwork Radio.
Seamwork Radio is brought to you by the team at Seamwork. Seamwork's an online community that supports you in creating a wardrobe that feels right for you. When you join us at Seamwork, you become part of our private community of makers, and you also get access to monthly sew-along classes, a library of over 200 sewing patterns, and tons of great resources to help guide you through the sewing adventure that you choose. Podcast listeners can get half off a Seamwork Unlimited membership, which means you can download as many of those 200 plus patterns as you want at any time, and our community will be there to guide and support you. If you'd like to join us for half off, just visit seamwork.com/go/podcast50. You can also find us on Instagram at Seamwork or visit our YouTube channel, which is called Seamwork Video. We love hearing from you, so let us know if there's a topic or a personal story that you'd like us to cover. Thanks for listening to Seamwork Radio.